fell asleep amid the flowers.
Alrighty folks, the battle of the orange apples is about to begin. Our first contender is the iPod Nano Generation 5. Originally released in 2009 with a ton of colors. In terms of the camera, it could record a VGA resolution, 640 by 480 pixels at 30 frames per second, and then a whopping 5 hours of video playback. And that brings us to the iPhone 17 Pro with massive upgrade to the cameras, which lets us record full 4K video at 24, 30, 60, or 120 frames per second. And 4K, of course, is 3840 by 2160. The iPhone 17 Pro is rated for 33 hours of video playback. Also, don't forget the 18 megapixel Selfie Cam, which can also record at 4K up to 60 frames per second. Alright, for me, dynamic range is the very first thing that comes to mind as the #1 difference between these two cameras. Dynamic range refers to the range of light that a camera can capture in the highlights, midtones, and shadows. As for our heroic iPod, you can see that the shadows are really crushed. The midtones and the highlights are actually exposed quite nice, but it just doesn't have enough range to get all the light information in. And we compare that to the iPhone, immediately we see just an astonishing difference in terms of the information and the detail captured in the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. Obviously, another huge difference in the capabilities of these cameras are the resolution. So what is VGA versus 4K like? Well, here's my Halo collection with the iPod at VGA resolution, and immediately you see how much more clear that this image is with the 4K. But what is the actual difference in size? Well, it's this. 4K is roughly 27 times more pixel resolution and information than VGA. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, next up is macro videography, which is actually pretty niche. Now we see here zoomed into the back of the original iPhone. I love that we can see that it's like literally etched into the metal. Here's my Pikachu figure from 1998 when I was just a wee little lad. Oh, and Mudkip. And here's my 4K IMAX screen. We can actually see the individual pixels thanks to the macro lens. Clearly see all the dust and grime that has built up from touching the remote all the time. Yuck. Well, with video comes motion, and with motion comes shakiness. So let's test the stabilization. I'm going on a run with my dog Taco, and as you can see, the iPod is getting the job done, but boy, is it shaky. Switching over to the iPhone, we can see immediately just how much smoother the experience is. All the iPhones have optical image stabilizations using little magnets to counteract some of the movements that you make. The iPhone also has action mode, which while it does take a resolution hit to 2.8K, I mean, just look at it. It is so silky smooth, it's ridiculous. So you don't necessarily need to use action mode all the time, but it is nice to have it. If you need more examples, let's go to Walmart. You can see that even with the iPhone, there's that slight bounce of me just simply walking down the aisle, but it is a night and day difference because on the iPod, every single step is like a Godzilla shattering amount of movement. One other thing to keep in mind is just physics. The iPod is a lot lighter and therefore a lot easier to shake around. The iPod is actually holding up pretty good in my opinion. Obviously, we see the shakiness, we see the lacking of dynamic range. Check this out, guys. Here's another excellent example of how well the iPhone does with dynamic range. That sunlight being reflected off on the glass. Huge difference in how it's able to handle that higher, blinding amount of light. Alright, now it's time to check out the Selfie Cam, which of course the iPod Nano does not have. So we kind of have to just hope that you get it right. Now here's the iPhone. I mean, everything about it looks better. One more quick example, walking down the aisles of Walmart. Of course, even with the iPhone, we do see that little rhythmic bounce to every step that I take. It's brighter, it's smoother, it's cleaner, it's awesome. The iPod Nano can't actually Zoom, there's just the one teeny tiny camera right there on the back. However, in Final Cut Pro, we can actually crop in 400%, so like 4x. But yeah, I mean, look at it. 2x, 4x. Another zoom shot. Well, with the teeny tiny iPod sensor comes not a lot of space to catch light. So as you can see here, it's just not a very good nighttime camera. You're gonna need lots of lights to be able to see anything. And even if you do have a lot of lights, like these pumpkin lights, they're just gonna be blown out because of the dynamic range. Poor little sensor just doesn't know what to do. I am actually very impressed with how well the iPhone is doing with these low lights. Here we can see the night sky. I'm taking a little stroll down my street and we can see all the detail of the clouds. So that darkness is really in good detail. We zoom into 8x, and then we can drop the darkness to compensate for the brightness of the moon, and look at how detailed that is. One last example, we've got my neighbor's yard. They're already getting in the Christmas spirit, but we can see just how well the low light does. Obviously, it's not very good because this sensor is teeny tiny. All right, well, we're winding down the video. We just got a few more features to compare. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, next up is slow motion. Obviously, just 30 frames a second. The iPod just doesn't have a slow motion. But with the iPhone, 4K at 120 frames per second, well, let's see what the difference is when they're both slowed down the same amount. That's pretty neat. Next up is cinematic mode. This was a feature added in, I think, the iPhone 15, if I'm not mistaken, the 15 Pro. Of course, that means we've got that nice blur in the background. Oh, and the dogs are dipping out. Okay. Of course, on the iPhone, we can just go ahead and zoom in. Look at that big, beautiful yawn. Here I am in the studio, just regular video footage, right? No blur. Let's switch over to cinematic mode and see how that compares. All right, now we're in cinematic mode. I've got my fake eyeglasses. I guess we could take that off. My hair is crazy, and the background is nice and blurry. Thanks, cinematic mode. Well, alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the video. Obviously, the new stuff is gonna look better, but it's always really fun to see just how far we have come. And also, I just really wanted to do a comparison between the only two orange cameras Apple has ever made. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one.